What would you do if an old lady tried to scam you? Because that's what happened to me today.
So I was at Walmart today. Yes, I shop at Walmart, haha. But anyways, I'm walking through the baby aisle because it's a shortcut to the spot I'm trying to get to. And there's a lady there looking really sad. But then she makes eye contact with me and she says, "Excuse me?" And I say, "Yes." And she goes, "I can't afford this baby formula, but I really need it for my son. And he doesn't have a dad to buy it. Can you help me out?" Also, remember the part where she said the baby doesn't have a dad. So I'm thinking, baby formula can't be that expensive. Sure, I'll buy it for you. So her mood changes now and she's really happy and appreciative. And she says thank you like 50 times. So we walk over to the register and she has this like tote bag with her. And all of a sudden, she pulls out like 7 more tubs of baby formula. And we're at self-checkout. So she's just scanning it like beep, 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 as fast as she can. But I look at the final price and it's over $450. I was down to help out this poor lady and spend like 30 or 40 bucks on some formula. But when she started pulling out the other tubs, that's when I started to question her. So I go, "Ma'am, I don't think I can afford all of this. I'm sorry." And she goes, "But you said you were gonna help me. My son needs this." And I go, "Where is your son right now?" This is where she messed up because she said, "His dad is watching him." Wait. Didn't you say that your son doesn't have a dad? So I tell her this and she just starts malfunctioning going, So I tell her that I'm not gonna buy the baby formula for her. But then she starts fake crying and I'm trying to hold back my laughter because I'm like, girl, this ain't an audition. Have you ever had a friend that apologizes for literally everything? Like, even when it's not their fault, they're apologizing. Like my friend is allergic to shellfish, right? So every time we go out to eat, he asks the waiter if the food has shellfish in it. And one time we went to a restaurant and the waiter was like, "No, there's no shellfish in our food." But then they brought out our meals and my friend starts eating. But then all of a sudden, he starts coughing really hard and he's not able to breathe. So he gets his EpiPen out and uses it. And the waiter sprints over to our table and they say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I just talked to the kitchen and they said that our sauce has shellfish in it." But then my friend was like, "Oh my gosh, no, I'm so sorry. I was making such a big scene in front of the whole restaurant." Dog, you just got poisoned and you're apologizing for it. I don't get it. But an even crazier situation is that one day, this same friend was riding his bike and he literally got hit by a car because the person was on their phone and not paying attention to the road. Luckily, my friend was okay, but after he got hit, he literally got up, looked at the car and was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I left such a big dent in your car." That dent is literally your forehead from when they slammed into you. That is not your fault. But he still apologized and even the driver was confused. He probably thought that my friend had a brain injury from getting hit. Why do men not know anything about their friends? Like the other day, a girl asked me this question and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she was like, "Well, girls know everything about each other, but guys don't even know the most simple information about their friends." And I was like, "That's not true." And she was like, "Oh yeah? Did you know Brian is adopted?" And Brian is my friend that I've known for about like 7 years. Like that's my homie. So I was like, "What? No, he's not." And she was like, "Yeah, he is." And she was like, "How did you not know that information?" And I was like, "I don't know. We mostly just talk about sports and stuff." But now that I think about it, it does make sense finally why he's 3 shades darker than his parents. But I didn't even know he was adopted. Meanwhile, girls know each other's menstrual cycles and stuff. So I guess she was right. But you know what? Tomorrow, I'm gonna ask Brian what his favorite color is, because that's my homie. How do you compliment the opposite gender without making them think you're flirting? Because the other day, I saw this girl, and she had a sick jacket on. So I said, "I like your jacket." And she was really sweet, but she was like, "Oh, thank you, but I actually have a boyfriend." Okay, and I have a goldfish. Like, are we just naming things that we have or what? Like, I don't think I could have said "nice jacket" any more platonically than I did, but it still sounded like I was flirting. But the worst part is that now it seems like I was desperate for her and I just got turned down. So how do I make it sound like I'm not flirting? Like, do I just need to be like, "Girl, that jacket is slaying"? Because I've thought about it, and that's like the only way I think I can give a compliment without it sounding flirtatious. What if I just start giving compliments in sign language? Would that work? I'm gonna be like, to everyone who keeps commenting for me to oil up, my family follows me on here, but they don't understand social media at all. So what do you think their reaction is when they go in my comment section and see 500 comments saying, "Oil up, oil up, oil up"? The past 3 nights at dinner, I've had to explain to them what that means. So please stop commenting it. I can't do this anymore. Situationships need to be abolished because every time I hear someone talk about their situationship, it just sounds like a bad rom-com. Like, what do you mean you guys have been in the talking stage for 2 years? Let's be real. If you are not dating by then, you're never gonna be. But then they'll be like, "No, we're soulmates. We've already planned our future together." Yet at the same time, they will purposely avoid making eye contact with them when they pass each other at school. But it gets worse because one day they'll be crying, so you have to ask them why they're crying, and then they'll say it's because their situationship is talking to other people. So then you say, "Well, are you guys dating?" And they say no, so then you say, "Yeah, that's what happens when someone's single. They talk to other people." But then they say, "She's not single though." What? Situationships are more confusing than my math class, and I'm almost failing. I genuinely get a headache trying to understand them. You know what a situationship really is? Delusion. Because has anyone ever had a situationship that actually worked out in the long term? No. So that means you should break up with your situationship. Or don't, actually. I don't care. Just stop talking to me about them. How do people cheat? Like, it genuinely seems hard to cheat. Because I knew someone that was in a relationship, and while they were in it, they would go on Tinder and try to find people to hook up with, but they would put their location in 200 miles away from where they were actually at, because he didn't want anyone in his area to find out that he was on Tinder and tell his girlfriend. So when he would get a match with someone, it would be 200 miles away, and he said he would literally drive out all the way there, hook up with her, and then come back the same day. Like, that's a full-time job. I don't get how people can be this down bad, though. Like, you obviously don't love your girlfriend. Just break up with the poor girl. But he told me that a lot of people actually do this. So have you guys heard of this happening before? Why do females say, I'm just a girl, anytime they do something wrong? Like, I saw a girl post a story where she literally crashed into a fire hydrant, and she made the caption, I'm just a girl, with the puppy eyes emoji. What does that even mean? I thought saying, I'm just a girl was like the response you give when your room is too messy because you have a bunch of clothes on the ground. Not when you almost run over a child on a bicycle. And the most funny part is that she said she didn't get in trouble for it at all. Like, she didn't get a fine or anything. So I just know that when the police arrived and asked her what happened, she said, I'm just a girl. And it worked. They need a cheat code like this for dudes. How do you compliment the opposite gender without making them think you're flirting? Because the other day I saw this girl and she had a sick jacket on. So I said, I like your jacket. And she was really sweet, but she was like, oh, thank you. But I actually have a boyfriend. Okay. And I have a goldfish. Like, are we just naming things that we have or what? Like, I don't think I could have said nice jacket any more platonically than I did, but it still sounded like I was flirting. But the worst part is that now it seems like I was desperate for her and I just got turned down. So how do I make it sound like I'm not flirting? Like, do I just need to be like, girl, that jacket is slaying? Because I've thought about it, and that's like the only way I think I can give a compliment without it sounding flirtatious. What if I just start giving compliments in sign language? Would that work? I'm gonna be like, have you ever been a friend group where they all rotate dating each other? Because I knew a friend group like this, and it was so weird because the guys in the group were like best friends, and they each would have girlfriends that were also in that friend group. But then eventually, they'd break up, and literally like the next week, they would be dating each other's exes. And they would act like it was completely normal. I remember the first time they did this, I talked to one of the guys in the group, and I was like, it doesn't make you feel uncomfortable that your best friend is dating your ex? And I was shocked when I heard his response because he was like, no, why would that make me uncomfortable? When he said this, I was finally like, oh, now I see what's going on here. You guys are not normal. Because if my best friend ever dated my ex, I would put bed bugs in his house. Like, I would never get over that. Because for me, dating your friend's ex is called betrayal. But for them, they just call that Tuesday. Nobody talks about how girls have a secret way of communicating. And I found this out because one time I was talking to a girl I liked and I saw that she got a text from someone with the name Apple. So I was like, I wonder who that is. But then a few minutes later, I saw her get another text from someone with the name Strawberry. So because I liked her, I decided to be nosy and I went to this girl's friend and I said, hey, do you know who Apple and Strawberry are? And she was like, Apple and Strawberry can be different people for everyone. So I was like, what does that mean? And she told me that when a girl likes a guy, she will give that guy a code name. And most of the time, this code name will be a fruit. So after I thought about it, I was like, oh, Apple and Strawberry are other guys that she likes. But then I was like, wait, that's not good for me. But the worst part was that one day I saw her scrolling through her contacts and she had like 18 different fruits in there. Like, I didn't even know this many fruits existed. She was talking to so many guys that she had to start coming up with really obscure fruits like pitaya and persimmon. So if you know a girl that has a bunch of fruit names in her contacts, I'm sorry, but it's over. Why do girls only like you when you don't like them back? Because I used to go to school with this girl that I literally did not know existed until one day she walks up to me at lunch and says, hey, can I sit next to you? So I said, sure. But then she started asking me a bunch of questions. So I was like, oh, I see what's going on here. She likes me. But I wanted to make it very clear to her that I wasn't interested in her. So every time she would ask me a question, I would just give her a super boring and dry answer. And I thought this would make her stop wanting to talk to me, but it didn't, because every day at lunch, she would sit next to me and ask me a bunch of questions. So after a while, I low-key started to like her because she cared about me. So eventually I was like, you know what? I'm gonna ask if she wants to go on a date. So that's what I did. The next day I said, hey, would you ever want to go out sometime? And she was like, just us two? And I was like, yeah. So then she said, are you asking me out on a date? And I said, I think so. And you know what she responded with? She said, oh, that's really sweet, but I'm not interested in you like that. You're too boring. She thought I was boring because, like I said, I used to be super dry when I talked to her because I didn't want her to like me. But that's not how I actually am. I was respectfully rejecting you, and now you're rejecting me. All the pride I had left, which was never a lot, it was gone after that. Male friendships and female friendships are so different because just the other day, my friend that's a guy got a phone call. So I was like, who's it from? And he says, oh, it's my grandma. I have to take this. So he answers the phone and out of nowhere, he just starts speaking German. So eventually he finishes the call and then I was like, since when were you bilingual? And he goes, I've always been bilingual. I grew up in Germany until I was 6 years old. What? Dog, I thought you were from Bakersfield. And it's not like I barely know this guy. I consider him one of my best friends. Somehow I just wasn't aware of this. But girls will literally know more about their friends than they know about themselves. Like this girl in my class was trying to buy clothes online and the website asked for her waist size. And she was like, I don't know my waist size. And immediately her friend just goes, your waist is 28 inches. She didn't even know what size she was. How do you know it? What kind of telekinesis was that? Like, how does that work? I don't get it. Have you ever had a friend that just can't spell anything over text? Because there was this girl I was talking to, but she thought I didn't like her back because we would text and I would be like, hey, do you want to hang out? And she would respond with a sentence that would literally take me 20 minutes to read because she didn't spell anything correctly. So sometimes I just wouldn't respond because I didn't know what it said. And eventually she was like, why don't you ever respond to my texts? I don't know. Maybe it's because I can't read them. Like I have a better chance of understanding someone speaking Japanese than understanding her text. And I don't speak Japanese. How do you expect me to read the word gorgeous when you spell it with 4 E's and an I? Like at least give me a chance. You can always tell when someone grew up with strict parents because I had this friend when I was younger and the first time he came over to my house, we went into my room to play video games and after he walked in, I asked him to shut the door, but he looked at me as if I just asked him if he wanted to rob a bank and then he was like, you can do that? So I was like, yeah, of course. That's what doors do. They shut. Then he was like, no, but I mean your parents won't get mad if you shut the door. Then he said something that was hilarious, but also really sad at the same time, which was, last time I tried shutting my bedroom door, my parents got so angry that they took the door out of the wall and now I don't have one anymore. Then he showed me a picture of his room and he literally doesn't have a door anymore. But the worst part was my mom heard him say this, so she used this as a reason to be like, see Tyler, aren't I such a cool parent for letting you have a door? And I was like, I think that's pretty normal, Mom, but yes, you are the best. Gen Z slang is so crazy because I was talking to this older man at the airport and he was telling me about how back when he was younger, his mom was in a cult. But because of the generation that I've grown up in, for some reason, I thought he meant cult as in being like a really loyal fan to an artist or an actor. Like Playboy Cardi, Lana Del Rey, you know what I mean? I wasn't thinking an actual cult. So I was like, oh, that's cool. What cult was she in? And with a straight face, he goes, Charles Manson's cult. So I laughed because I thought he was joking, but he didn't smile at all. So I was like, oh, you're serious? And he goes, yep. She's still in prison. But the reason I laughed is because I totally forgot that cults were like an actual thing. Because these days, Gen Z will call anything a cult. Like if you happen to really like frozen yogurt, they'll probably say you're in the Froyo cult. So that was the type of stuff I thought he was talking about when he said cult, not the stuff that the Manson family was doing. I gotta go outside more, man. My brain is cooked. You may have done something embarrassing today, but it wasn't as embarrassing as what I did. I was talking to a mom that has a special needs son, but she didn't say what type of disability he has, and because I'm on TikTok way too much, I accidentally said, oh, is your son acoustic? Instead of saying autistic. She was like, are you asking if he likes guitars? And I didn't even realize I said it wrong, so I said, what does his disability have to do with guitars? And she said, you asked if he's acoustic. My face instantly turned red. That was the last sign. I need to throw my phone off a cliff. This is your warning to not date someone with a different love language than you, because there was this couple at my school who broke up because the girl was super outgoing, really talkative, and she would always say how her love language was words of affirmation. So she always needed to hear people say they loved her for her to believe it. But unfortunately, she decided to date a guy who was the exact opposite. Like this man was literally the final boss of being nonchalant. And when he did speak, it definitely wasn't him expressing his emotions. Not because he didn't love her, he just wasn't the type of guy to express his emotions out loud like that. So over time, the girl got upset and started to think that he just didn't like her because he wouldn't say these words of affirmation. And she would bring this up to him, but it would just make him frustrated too because that wasn't the type of guy he is. So they broke up, but the craziest part about it is since this guy was so nonchalant, after the breakup, he looked like nothing even happened. Meanwhile, the girl was sobbing in class. Like, this is why I just stay out of relationships. And I'm scared to talk to women. Don't ask me for advice on how to talk to girls because my friend did that and now he's not getting a second date. Because he asked me how to approach this girl that he liked and I was like, just treat her like she's one of your homies. Sounds like good advice, right? Turns out that's really bad advice and he took it way too literal because when we hang out, he would always do this thing where if we were walking by a bush, he would push me into it because he thought it was like the most funny thing ever. And it was, but it's funny because we're close friends. You wouldn't do that to a random stranger, right? Right? Well, he was hanging out with this girl for the first time, so they were still in the stage where you're asking each other what their favorite color is. And they're walking down the street, but he sees a bush coming up. So as she's talking, he just pushes her into it and laughs. Do you know how much of a psychopath he probably looked like to her at that moment? Lucky for him, the girl didn't take it too seriously and they finished the rest of the date together, but I don't think he's getting a second date. What do you guys think? Is he gonna get one? No, he's not. Why are mukbangs getting so out of control? Because before, mukbangs would just be someone eating a burrito from Chipotle. But now, they're eating the whole damn building. And then they take it a step further and get a big old sized cup of cane sauce and queso and pour it on the burrito. Like, you know cane sauce ain't making that burrito taste better. You're just doing it for the shock factor. I genuinely can't remember the last time I saw a normal mukbang where they just eat a regular sized meal. At this point, it would be refreshing to see something like that where they just eat a piece of salmon and some asparagus. Oh, and don't even get me started on the crumble cookie videos. Why are you guys there at 8 a.m. on a Monday morning eating 6,000 calories worth of cookies? The bills cannot be that high. A girl will never admit if she likes you. Instead, she'll just start doing really weird things when she's around you. And I know this because there was this girl that I sat next to in school, and every day during class, she would kick me. And it wasn't just a light tap. No, she was going full force like Ronaldo on a free kick. But that wasn't the only weird thing she did. She would also call me dog, which I have no problem with. But this 5'2" blonde girl with a soft voice did not look like the type of person that goes around saying, "What's up, dog?" So when she did this, I was just thinking like, is this girl okay? But then after about a year, we weren't in the same class anymore, and I asked her why she did these things, and she was like, "Oh, it's because I had a crush on you." And I was like, "No, you didn't. You wouldn't have kicked me all the time if you did." And she was like, "That was literally my way of saying that I liked you." Well, how was I supposed to know that? Do girls just flirt by hurting you? From my understanding, if I ever get punched in the face by a girl, I should just ask her out immediately.
This is your warning to never go to a Gen Z dentist because I just did and it did not end well.
So my dentist was a girl and she was around my age and she was gorgeous. So when she saw me, she said, "Hi, are you Tyler?" And I'm like, ooh, she knows my name. But then she goes, "I'm gonna be your dental hygienist today. My name's Isabella." And at this point, I'm in love with Isabella. I've already planned our future together. But then I was like, wait, you're my dentist? That's so embarrassing. I don't want you seeing my teeth like that. But I have no choice. So she tells me that I can sit down in the chair, and I do. And then she says, "All right, now open up." And I'm like, "Okay, fine. I love you." And she goes, "No, not that kind of open up. I mean, open your mouth." No, I'm kidding. That part did not happen. But what did happen is she worked on my teeth, and she did a great job. But after she was done, I knew I had no chance with her because this is what she saw for an hour straight. I just know I gave her the ick. Just give me the 80-year-old dentist next time. Old people will drop the most insane lore on you and then act like it's nothing. Cause one day at school, I was eating a banana in class and my teacher that's from Europe sees this and he goes, "How's the banana?" And I say, "It's good. You want a piece of it?" And he responds by saying how he's not supposed to have bananas for the rest of his life. So I'm like, "Oh, are you allergic to them?" And he says no. So I go, "Oh, well, then why aren't you supposed to eat them?" And he gives me an insane response, which was, "Well, when I was younger, I lived by Chernobyl when the power plant exploded and I was exposed to so much radiation, which had a bunch of potassium in it. So I'm never supposed to have bananas again." And for anyone who doesn't know, Chernobyl was a nuclear power plant that exploded, making the whole area around it radioactive. This was like a huge thing, and somehow my teacher was there for it, and he just casually brought it up like it was no big deal. Does every old person just have crazy lore? I went to school with a guy who just got put in prison for murder, and he was super popular when we were in school. So now that he's in prison, a bunch of our old classmates are posting stuff on social media saying to free him. This man got booked for murder, not littering, and you want him to be free? You want him to roam the same streets that your mother roams? And just for context, when we were in school, he used to pretend to stab people with a pencil, but we would just laugh it off because he was the cool kid. Now we know he was just fantasizing about really doing it. California State Prison, if you are watching this video, do not free him. He will do it again.